Li Jun walked through the crowded central promenade. All around him, the universe was on display. Beings of light and shadow, of rock and gas, moved in every direction. There were tall, slender figures who clicked as they walked, and short, wide beings who rolled on small platforms. The air smelled of ozone, of strange spices, and of the clean, recycled air of the station. This was the Pangalactic University, a place for the smartest minds from 1,000 worlds to learn together. Li Jun was one of them. He was a human exchange student from Earth. Today, he was not thinking about the universe. He was thinking about his xenolinguistics exam. It was in 1 hour, and he needed to review the complex click-based grammar of the Glimmerfolk. He had his earbuds in, listening to a study recording. His eyes were locked on his datapad, scrolling through notes. He walked on autopilot, his feet carrying him along a path he took every day. He did not see the delicate, crystal-like Glimmerfolk fluttering out of his way, their inner light pulsing with nervous energy. He did not notice the 2 hulking Boreans, who looked like walking mountains, subtly shift their stances as he passed. He was just a young man, a little tired, focused on his studies. As he passed under a large, arched doorway, a round device on the ceiling began to glow. It was usually a soft, peaceful blue. Now it flashed a bright, alarming red. A voice, calm and clear, echoed across the promenade. Warning: biosignature detected. Category: apex predator. Evasive action advised. Li Jun heard the voice through his music. He thought it was part of his study recording for a moment. A new vocabulary word, perhaps. He kept walking, but the world around him froze. The Glimmerfolk, who had been gently floating, now shot away from him like scattered glass shards, their light dimming to a fearful flicker. The 2 Boreans moved with a surprising speed, placing their large, rocky bodies in front of a group of smaller, plant-like students. A chorus of clicks, whistles, and scared hums rose from the crowd. Jun, feeling the sudden silence where there should have been noise, finally looked up. He pulled one earbud out. The sight confused him. A perfect circle of empty space had opened up around him. Everyone was staring. Their many eyes, whether they were compound or single-lensed, were wide with fear. He turned his head, looking behind him. He assumed something truly terrifying must be there. A loose lab creature, maybe, a rogue robot, but he saw only the retreating backs of other students. Then he saw the public information screens on the walls. They usually showed maps and class schedules. Now they were all a solid red. In the center of each screen was a simple, terrifying message: apex predator. Below the words was a blinking red circle, and inside that circle was a live video feed of his own face, looking confused. His heart sank. Was he in trouble? Had he accidentally broken some important rule? He looked down at himself. He was just wearing his normal clothes, a comfortable gray hoodie and dark pants. He had his backpack. Nothing was out of the ordinary. He took a hesitant step forward. The circle of empty space moved with him. The alarm continued to blare. Warning: apex predator. Evasive action advised. This was ridiculous. He was going to be late for his exam. He saw the fear in the eyes of the Glimmerfolk, and he felt a pang of guilt. He didn't want to scare anyone. He gave them a small, awkward smile and a little wave, trying to show he was friendly. This had the opposite effect. The Glimmerfolk he waved at let out a high-pitched chime and shot behind a Borean for cover. The Borean itself grumbled, a low sound like grinding stones, and flexed its powerful arms. Jun's face fell. He put his earbud back in, hoping to block it all out. He decided the best thing to do was to just keep walking. If he ignored it, it would stop. He focused on the path to his lecture hall, his head down, trying to make himself as small as possible. He was a river stone, and the crowd was water parting around him. He passed another sensor. This one, a small panel on the wall, lit up red and added its own voice to the alarm. Apex predator. Threat level elevated. He wanted to yell, "I'm just a student," but he didn't. He kept walking, the symphony of panic following him like a shadow. He noticed that none of the other humans he passed seemed scared. A girl from his engineering class, Kim Yuna, saw him and her eyes went wide, but then she started to laugh, covering her mouth with her hand. He just shook his head at her, too embarrassed to stop. He finally reached the corridor that led to his xenolinguistics class. The alarm here was quieter. The crowd was thinner. He felt a wave of relief. Maybe it was over. He could still make his exam. He picked up his pace, his mind already trying to push the strange event aside and focus on click-based verb tenses. He didn't know that in the security center, high above the promenade, a man named Quan Li was watching his every move on a large screen. Quan Li was the head of station security. He was a human, a former soldier, and he looked very, very tired. He saw the apex predator label tracking the student named Li Jun. He listened to the frantic calls from the university director. He took a long sip of his coffee. Then he pressed a button on his console and spoke to his team. All units stand down. The target is a human. He is a student. He is just walking to class. Confused voice came back. Sir, the system has never been wrong. It is reading his everything. His eyes, his posture, his heartbeat. It all matches the profile of a dominant, pack-hunting predator.
Quan Li siga.
He had had this conversation before. It's called being in a hurry, he said. Log it as a false alarm. And tell Director Tull to relax. Down below, Li Jun finally reached his classroom door. He reached for the handle, ready to put the whole embarrassing morning behind him. But the door didn't slide open. A soft, blue energy field had sealed it shut. A small light on the wall next to the door was blinking red. He was locked out. Class hadn't even started yet, and he was already locked out. He leaned his forehead against the cool metal of the door and closed his eyes. It was going to be a very long day. The blue energy field across the lecture hall door hummed softly. Li Jun stared at it, his hopes for a normal day dissolving. He could see through the field into the empty classroom. His seat was waiting. His datapad was full of notes he needed to review one last time. But he was stuck outside. The soft hum of the door was the only quiet sound he could hear. The distant echo of the apex predator, alarm still drifted from the main promenade, and he heard light footsteps behind him. He turned to see his friend, Kim Yuna. She was a xenobiology major, and she usually had a calm, observant look in her eyes. Right now, she was trying very hard not to laugh. June, she said, her voice full of amusement. What did you do? The whole station is talking. My comms unit is buzzing with messages. They say a monster is loose on the promenade. June sighed and leaned back against the wall, sliding down to sit on the floor. I didn't do anything, Yuna. I was just walking. I was listening to my linguistics notes. Then, all of that happened. He gestured vaguely in the direction of the noise. Yuna sat down next to him. You know what the system flagged you as, right? Apex predator. She said the words with a scientist's curiosity, not fear. What does that even mean? June asked, feeling miserable. I'm not a predator. I eat tofu and rice. I'm a student. Before Yuna could explain, both of their comms units buzzed at the same time. It was a direct message from the office of the director. It was not a request. It was a command. Report to Director Tull's office immediately. June's stomach felt heavy. Yuna's playful smile vanished, replaced by a look of concern. Okay, she said. This is serious. They stood up and began the long walk to the central administration spire. This time, June did not have his earbuds in. He was painfully aware of everything happening around him. As they walked, the reaction was the same. Beings moved out of their path. Sensors on the walls flickered from blue to a cautious yellow as he approached, then back to blue after he passed. No alarms sounded, but the silent warning was clear. He was being watched. They entered a lift that traveled horizontally and then up, towards the top of the spire. The lift was occupied by a single, tall being with long, thin limbs and shimmering skin. It looked at June, its large, dark eyes blinking slowly. Then, it pressed a button for a different floor and quickly got off, even though the lift was going in the wrong direction. June looked at Yuna. See? he whispered. She nodded slowly. They're scared of you. It's a biological response. Their instincts are telling them to run, even if their brains know you're a student. The doors opened into a waiting room. The floor was soft and quieted their footsteps. The air was still. A nervous-looking Grothan assistant, its antennae twitching, gestured for them to go into the main office. Director Tull's office was a large, circular room with a wide view of the stars. Director Tull himself was a Grothan, a species known for their administrative skills and their deep desire for order. He stood behind his desk, his forearms clasped behind his back. His large, compound eyes were fixed on June. In the corner of the room, leaning against a wall with his arms crossed, was Quan Li, the head of security. He looked as tired as he had in the security center. Director Tull did not waste time. "Student Li Jun," he began, his voice a reedy hum, "you have caused a significant disruption today. The Pangalactic University operates on a foundation of peace and mutual understanding. The events of this morning have shaken that foundation. Explain yourself." June felt his face grow warm. "Sir, I don't have an explanation. I was just walking to my xenolinguistics exam. I wasn't running. I wasn't shouting. I was just walking. Director Tull repeated, as if it were a strange and unknown concept. He turned one of his large eyes towards Quan Li. "Security Chief? Your report." Quan Li pushed himself off the wall. He walked over to the director's desk and placed a small device on it. A hologram sprang to life above the desk. It showed a map of the promenade with a red dot moving along it. Next to the dot was a list of words that scrolled too fast for June to read, but he caught a few. Persistent ocular tracking. Aggressive bipedal gait. Elevated dermal perspiration. "Director," Quan Li said, his voice calm and steady. "The Galaxy C system is not broken. It worked exactly as it was designed." Director Tull's antennae vibrated with frustration. It labeled a sleepy student as an apex predator. "That is not working as designed." "But it is, sir," Quan Li said. He tapped the device. The hologram changed. Now it showed a side-by-side comparison. On one side was a picture of a Varaxian sandstalker, a creature June recognized from Yuna's textbooks. It was a terrifying thing with sharp claws and many eyes. On the other side was a simple, generic diagram of a human body. Lines and labels pointed to different parts. Quan Li pointed to the human diagram. "The system scans for a combination of biological and behavioral markers that are common to the most dangerous predators across known space. Let me list what it saw in Student Li." He looked at June. "Your eyes. They are on the front of your face, giving you deep binocular vision. This is a trait of hunters who need to judge distance to their prey. The system calls this high-accuracy targeting." June blinked. He had never thought of his eyes as weapons. "Your posture," Quan Li continued. "You walk fully upright, your head on a swivel, your arms free. The system interprets this as constant threat assessment and readiness. You are always scanning your environment for danger or opportunity." "But I was looking for my friend," June said weakly, glancing at Yuna. "Then there is your physiology." Quan Li went on, ignoring him. "You were slightly late, so you were walking fast. Your heart rate was up. You were breathing deeply to power your muscles. The system reads this as a combat-ready adrenal response. Your body was, by all galactic standards, preparing for a fight." Yuna couldn't contain herself any longer. She stepped forward, her eyes bright with excitement. "He's right, Director. It's a classic misclassification based on evolutionary biology. To most species in the galaxy, a state of high alert is a temporary condition. For humans, it's our default setting. Our ancestors had to be always watching, always ready. Our relaxed is most species highly stressed. The sensors aren't wrong. They're just reading the data correctly but understanding it wrong." Director Tull looked from Quan Li to Yuna, and then back to June. He seemed to be processing this. "So, you are telling me that the simple act of a human walking presents the same biological signature as a Varaxian sandstalker on the hunt? Essentially, yes, Quanli said. The system doesn't see a student. It sees a creature built to chase, to fight, and to dominate its environment. It sees an apex predator. There was a long silence in the room. June felt a strange mix of emotions. He was still embarrassed, but now there was also a flicker of something else. It was a weird feeling, to be told your normal, everyday self was seen as a monster by the entire universe. Director Tull finally let out a long, slow breath. This is a public relations nightmare. We cannot have the security system terrorizing the student body every time a human is in a hurry. He turned to Quan Li. Can you fix it? Recalibrate the sensors. Quan Li shook his head. It's not that simple, sir. The profile is accurate. If I tell the system to ignore those human traits, it might miss a real threat. The best I can do is apply a low priority tag to all registered human students. It will mute the public alarms, but the security monitors will still flag them. Quietly, Director Tull waved a hand, looking defeated. Do it. Do it now. I do not want another incident. He looked at June. Student Lee, you are excused. Try to be less yourself when in crowded areas. June just nodded, not knowing what to say. He and Yuna turned and left the office. The walk back through the quiet corridors felt different. June now knew why everyone was looking at him. He wasn't just a student. He was a biological event. He was a walking collection of predatory traits, a living alarm trigger. He looked at Yuna. So, by just existing, I'm scary? Yuna gave him a sympathetic smile. Not to me, but to the galaxy. June, you have to understand. To them, you're a creature from their worst nightmares. You just happen to be a creature who is really worried about his linguistics grade. They reached the corridor where their classes were. The energy field on his classroom door was gone. His exam was over. He had missed it. He stood there, looking at the empty room. His morning was ruined, his exam was missed, and he had just learned that his very body was a weapon he didn't know how to control. It was a lot to take in. All he had wanted to do was walk to class. The rest of the day was strange for Li Jun. The public alarms did not scream anymore. Quan Li had kept his word. But the silence that followed June now felt even heavier than the noise. He could feel eyes on him everywhere he went. In the cafeteria, a wide space opened around his table. In the library, beings would carefully choose a seat as far from him as possible. He was not a person to them. He was a walking warning sign. He tried to explain to his xenolinguistics professor why he had missed the exam. The professor, a delicate glimmerfolk named Elonin, had listened from behind a reinforced glass screen in his office. His light pulsed in a nervous, rapid rhythm. He agreed to let June take a makeup exam, but his voice was thin and shaky. June left feeling worse than before. His friend, Kim Yuna, tried to cheer him up. They met up with another human student, Park Min, in a common area. Park Min was an engineering student. He was more interested in how things worked than how people felt. So, the system thinks you're a monster because you walk on two legs and have forward-facing eyes. Park Min said, taking a bite of an apple. That's not a bug, June. That's a feature. They should be scared. That's not helpful, Min, Yuna said, frowning. June is upset. I'm not upset, June said, which was not true.
I'm confused.
I don't feel like a predator. I feel like I just want to blend in. You can't blend in, Park Min said simply. Your biology won't let you. It's like asking a tornado to be quiet. It's not built for that. Later, June was alone in his dorm room. It was a small, plain space, designed to be comfortable for many different species. He stood in front of the mirror. He looked at his own face. He saw his two eyes, looking back at him. He tried to see what the sensors saw. High-accuracy targeting. He just saw a tired student. He walked back and forth. Aggressive bipedal gait. He just saw someone pacing nervously. He thought about the fear in the Glimmerfolk's light. He thought about the Boreans moving to protect others. He had never wanted to be a source of fear. He was from a quiet neighborhood in Seoul. He liked reading and quiet music. The most aggressive thing he did most days was argue about physics with Park Min, he felt a deep loneliness settle over him. The university was supposed to be a place of connection, a place where different worlds could meet and learn from each other. But he was isolated. His very body was a barrier that he could not cross. He was a prisoner of his own evolution. The next morning, June woke up determined to be different. He moved more slowly. He kept his eyes fixed on the ground in front of his feet, trying not to scan his environment. He tried to make himself small and harmless. It was exhausting. He felt like he was acting in a play that he went to the botanical atrium to meet Yuna. It was a huge, open space filled with plants from many worlds. Giant purple leaves shared space with glowing blue fungi. It was usually a peaceful place. Today, he saw a group of young Glimmerfolk students hovering near a fascinating, pulsating flower. As he walked by, careful and slow, one of them noticed him. Its light flickered in alarm. The whole group quickly floated away, abandoning their study of the flower. June stopped walking. He felt a pang of sadness. He had ruined their moment just by being nearby. He wasn't even trying to get to class anymore. He was just existing, and that was enough to cause fear that he found Yuna sitting on a bench near a small artificial stream. She was reading on her datapad. She looked up and saw the look on his face. "Still getting the apex predator treatment?" she asked gently. June sat down heavily next to her. "It's worse now," he said. "When the alarm was going off, at least they had a reason to be scared. Now there's no alarm. They're just scared of me, Lee June. They see me and their instincts tell them to run. How do I fight that?" "You don't fight it," a voice said from behind them. It was Quan Li. The security chief was walking a patrol through the atrium. He stopped near their bench. He looked at June with an understanding that surprised him. "You can't change what you are, son," Quan Li said. "None of us can. Every human on this station has the same effect on the sensors. We just usually move in groups so the system averages us out. You were alone. The system focused on you. So what do I do?" June asked, his voice full of frustration. "Do I just accept that I'm a monster here?" Quan Li looked out at the strange and beautiful plants. "You're not a monster. You're a human. Your species survived by being tougher, smarter, and more adaptable than anything else on your world. That left a mark on you. The galaxy has never seen anything quite like us before. They don't know how to process a species that is as gentle as it is fierce, as creative as it is destructive." He turned back to June. "You can't be less than what you are, but you can learn to control it. Your readiness? That's awareness. Your aggressive posture? That's confidence. Your targeting eyes? That's focus. They are tools. Right now, they are just switched on all the time by default. You need to learn when to use them." June thought about this. It was a different way of seeing things. He wasn't a problem to be solved. He was a person with a powerful set of instincts he didn't understand. "Thank you, sir," June said. "That helps a little." Quan Li gave a short nod. "Don't try to crawl through this station, kid. Walk tall. Just be aware of the space you occupy. And for Star's sake, don't make that terrified little smile again. It confuses the sensors even more. It reads as deceptive threat display." June almost laughed. He had been trying to be friendly, and it was seen as a trick. Quan Li continued on his patrol. June and Yuna sat in silence for a while. June felt a small shift inside him. The weight was still there, but it felt different. It felt less like a curse and more like a heavy coat he had to wear. He stood up. He stopped hunching his shoulders. He stood straight. He looked around the atrium, not at the ground, but at the wonders it contained. He saw the Glimmerfolk by the pulsating flower, watching him from a distance. He didn't smile. He just gave them a slow, respectful nod. Then he turned and walked away, not too fast, not too slow that he heard no screams. He saw no panic. He was still Lee June, the human. He was still an apex predator by galactic standards. But maybe, just maybe, he could learn to live with that. The journey to class would never be simple again. But for the first time since the alarms had screamed, he felt a small spark of hope. He was starting to understand the power he carried, and with understanding, maybe he could learn to control it. The new understanding did not make things easy for Li Jun. It just made them different. For the next few days, he practiced what Quan Li had said. He walked through the station with a calm purpose. He did not slouch or hurry. He tried to be aware of the space he took up without being ashamed of it. It was a difficult balance. He was still a spectacle, but the fearful whispers seemed to lessen slightly. The other students were getting used to the quiet, steady human. He was in the botanical atrium again, this time with Park Min. They were supposed to be studying stellar mechanics, but Min was more interested in the station's systems. "See," Min said, pointing his datapad at a small sensor on the ceiling. "I can access the public log. Watch this." He tapped his screen. "It just registered both of us. Look at the code. For me, it's a Category 2 potential. For you, June, it's still Apex. But because we're together and I'm registered as non-threatening, it doesn't trigger the alarm. It's like I'm your handler." June frowned. "I don't need a handler. Everyone needs a friend," Min said with a grin. "Even apex predators." Suddenly, a different sound cut through the quiet hum of the atrium. It was not the high-pitched bioscan alarm. This was a deep, shuddering klaxon that vibrated through the floor. It was a sound June had never heard before. It was a sound that promised real danger. Red lights flashed along the walls, casting long, dancing shadows. A sharp, automated voice echoed everywhere. "Containment breach. Laboratory 7X. Subject, Varaxian Sandstalker. All students proceed to safe zones. Security personnel to Sector 7. For a moment, there was perfect silence. Then panic erupted. This was not the controlled fear of the bioscan. This was raw, pure terror. The Sandstalker was not a misunderstanding. It was a real monster, a killing machine from a high-gravity desert world. It was known for its paralytic sting and its love for hunting anything that moved. The glimmerfolk in the atrium let out piercing, chime-like screams, their light flashing in chaos. They flew in every direction, bumping into plants and each other. The other students, a mix of species, scrambled for the exits. The orderly paths of the atrium became a river of frightened bodies. Park Min grabbed June's arm. "We need to go. Now. The safe zone is the other way." He pointed towards a wide corridor leading out of the atrium. But June's feet felt rooted to the spot. His eyes, his high-accuracy targeting systems, were locked on a scene across the atrium. A group of 3 young glimmerfolk had been cornered. They were pressed against a thick wall of twisting vines, their light flickering weakly. Between them and the main exit was the Sand-Stalker. It was bigger than June had imagined from the pictures. It was low to the ground, its body covered in segmented, chameleonic plates that shifted to match the colors of the plants behind it. Its many legs ended in sharp points. At the front of its body, a sharp barbed tail twitched, dripping with a clear, paralytic fluid. It made a clicking, chittering sound that set June's teeth on edge. It was slowly advancing on the trapped students, who were huddled together, too terrified to even make a sound. Security drones zipped into the atrium. They fired blue stun beams at the creature. The beams hit its armored back, sparking harmlessly. The Sandstalker ignored them. It was focused on its prey. Quan Li's voice crackled over the public address system, tight with urgency. "All units, contain and subdue. Stun setting to maximum. Do not let it reach the promenade." More stun beams hit the creature. One hit its leg, and it stumbled for a second, letting out an angry hiss. It turned and, with a blindingly fast movement of its tail, swatted a drone out of the air. The drone smashed against the wall and fell to the floor, broken. The creature turned back to the glimmerfolk. It was now only a few steps away. The security teams were not going to be in time. "June, come on," Park Min yelled, pulling at his arm. "We can't do anything. That thing will paralyze us and eat us." But June wasn't listening. The strange calm he had been practicing all week settled over him like a blanket. The background noise of the alarms and the screams faded away. His world narrowed to the creature, the trapped students, and the space between them. Quan Li's words echoed in his mind. They are tools. You need to learn when to use them. This was the time. He shook off Min's hand. His eyes, his targeting system, calculated the distance. His posture, his readiness, straightened into something solid and sure. The elevated heart rate and deep breathing from his fear were now, as the sensor said, a combat-ready adrenal response. But it wasn't for combat. It was for protection. He didn't have a weapon. He looked around. His eyes fell on a long metal rod leaning against a tool rack. It was used by the gardening bots to unclog irrigation pipes. It was solid and about as long as he was tall. He grabbed it. It felt heavy and cold in his hands. June, what are you doing? Min screamed, his face pale. June didn't answer. He started to walk. He did not run. Running was what prey did. He walked with deliberate, heavy steps directly towards the sandstalker. He made no sound. The creature, focused on the flickering lights of the glimmerfolk, didn't notice him at first. But when he was about 10 meters away, one of its many eyes swiveled and saw him. It stopped its advance, turned its whole body to face this new thing. June kept walking. He made direct, unbreaking eye contact with the cluster of its front-facing eyes. It was a challenge, a universal signal of dominance. The sandstalker hesitated. It was used to prey that ran or froze. It did not understand a creature that walked towards it. It let out a low, threatening chitter, raising its barbed tail. June was now close enough to smell it. A dry, dusty smell, like old bones. He stopped. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs. Then, he did something the sensors would have had no name for. He let out a sharp, guttural yell. It was not a scream of fear. It was a short, explosive bark of pure aggression. It was a sound from the deep past of humanity, a sound used to startle enemies and warn them away. The sandstalker flinched, took a half-step back. The direct challenge, the unblinking eye contact, and the shocking noise confused its simple predator's brain. For a crucial few seconds, it was no longer the hunter. It was trying to understand if it had become the hunted. That was all the time Quan Li's team needed. From the other side of the atrium, a high-powered stun bolt, set to its absolute maximum, shot through the air. It hit the sandstalker directly in its less armored underside. The creature convulsed violently. Its legs crumpled. It let out a final, weak click and then lay still on the floor, unconscious. The deep klaxon alarm cut off. The red lights stopped flashing. In the sudden, ringing silence, the only sound was the faint, frightened chiming of the glimmerfolk. Li Jun stood there, the metal rod still held tightly in his hands, his chest heaving. He looked at the stunned security teams by the door. He looked at Park Min, whose mouth was hanging open. Then he looked at the three glimmerfolk. They were still huddled against the vines, but their light was slowly growing steadier. They were looking at him, and for the first time, their gaze was not filled with fear. It was filled with something else, something like awe. The silence in the atrium was heavy and deep. Li Jun's ears were still ringing from his own shout. He slowly lowered the metal rod, the clang as it hit the floor startlingly loud in the quiet. His hands were shaking. He felt the adrenaline draining from his body, leaving him feeling weak and hollow. Security teams in heavy armor rushed past him, surrounding the unconscious sandstalker. They quickly injected it with sedatives and clamped restraints on its legs and tail. The immediate danger was over. June's eyes met those of the three glimmerfolk. They were no longer cowering. They had uncurled themselves and were floating just a few inches from the ground, their light a soft, steady pulse. They were still looking at him. It wasn't the terrified flicker from before, or the nervous avoidance from the hallways. This was a new look. It was a look of deep, profound confusion, mixed with a dawning respect. One of them made a series of soft, clear chimes. June didn't understand the language, but the tone was unmistakable. It was thanks. Park Min ran up to him, his face a mixture of panic and amazement. June, are you okay? Are you stung? I can't believe you did that. You just walked up to it. Before June could answer, Quan Li was there. The security chief placed a firm, steadying hand on Jun's shoulder. "Look at me, son." Jun looked up. Quan Li's eyes were sharp, checking him over. "Did it touch you? Any fluid on you?" Jun shook his head, unable to find his voice. "Good," Quan Li said, his own voice rough with emotion. "That was the stupidest, bravest thing I have ever seen." He looked over at the Glimmerfolk, who were now being gently led away by a medic. "You saved them. They were seconds from being stung. The security teams were too far away." He gave Jun's shoulder a squeeze before letting go. "I need to deal with this. Don't move. Medical will want to check you." The story, of course, did not stay in the atrium. In the age of instant comms and network chatter, it spread across the station faster than light. The tale of the apex predator alarm was old news. This was new. This was different. The narrative shifted. It was no longer about a scary human who triggered sensors. It was about the human who stood between a monster and its prey. The human who used the very traits that marked him as a predator not to hunt, but to protect. The human whose threat display was a shield for others. Later that day, Director Tull made another announcement. He praised the security team's swift action. He did not mention Li Jun by name. It was an official statement, and officials like things to be orderly. But unofficially, everyone knew. When Jun left the medical bay, clean and declared unharmed, he stepped back into the main corridor. He braced himself for the usual reactions. But they did not come. A Borean student, one of the large, rock-like beings, was walking towards him. As they passed, the Borean did not move aside. Instead, it stopped. It looked at Jun with its deep-set stone eyes. Then it made a low, rumbling sound in its chest and gave a slow, respectful nod before moving on. Jun stood there, stunned, as he continued his walk to the dormitory. He passed a group of Glimmerfolk. They did not scatter. They floated in place, and as he passed, their lights brightened into a warm, golden color. It was the color of gratitude. He wasn't a ghost anymore. He wasn't a monster. He was a person who had done a brave thing. The fear was gone, replaced by a cautious, curious respect. The next morning, he had to go to his xenolinguistics make-up exam. He walked into the classroom. Professor Elonin, the Glimmerfolk, was there. The professor's light, which had been so nervous before, now glowed with a soft, steady silver. He handed Jun the test. "Whenever you are ready, Student Li," the professor chimed, his voice calm and clear. Jun sat down and began his exam. He was focused. He was thinking about verb tenses and click patterns. He was just a student again. But he was also something more. When he finished the exam and stood up to leave, Professor Elonin spoke again. "Student Li." Jun turned. "Yes, Professor?" The professor's light pulsed gently. "On behalf of the Glimmerfolk, thank you for your formidable presence." Jun didn't know what to say. He just bowed slightly and left. He met Yuna and Park Min for lunch. The cafeteria was crowded. This time, no one moved away to give them a wide space. A group of students at a nearby table even waved at them. "It's weird, isn't it?" Yuna said, stirring her soup. "You're still you." But now they see the context. They understand that a tool is not good or bad. It depends on how it's used. Park Min laughed. "I told you it was a feature." Now they see the user manual. Jun smiled. It was a real smile this time, not the terrified, awkward one from before. He looked around the cafeteria, at the incredible diversity of life from across the stars. He was still different. His body still screamed predator to their instincts. But now they had a new memory to associate with that signal. Not fear, but safety. Not a threat, but a protector. He was Li Jun, a student from Earth. He liked quiet music and studying. And he was also, by the simple facts of his biology, an apex predator. The galaxy had feared that word. Now they were starting to understand it. It didn't have to mean a monster. Could also mean a guardian. The journey to class would always be an interesting one, but he was no longer walking it alone. He was walking it as himself.